Divine Grace, Lacey Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai, Samavetam Bhaktam Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Jakambitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachalini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschachadishtarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Grim Yat Kripa Tamam Vande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna, good morning. A very special day today with the marriage of Dr. Robert and Surabhi. So many devotees are preparing for the festival, the wedding festival. But today I was thinking present something based on the purport of the verse of today, which is called, I call the presentation Blessed with Instructions. But first we will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are starting a new chapter, but before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we first pray to the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter number 74, which is entitled The Deliverance of Shishupal at the Rajasuya Sacrifice. We are starting a new chapter, so we first read the chapter summary. This chapter describes how Lord Krishna received the honor of first worship during the Rajasuya sacrifice and how he killed Shishupal. After glorifying Lord Krishna, King Yudhishthira selected qualified brahmanas such as Bharadvaj, Gautama and Vasishta to serve as the priests of the Rajasuya sacrifice. Then many exalted guests of all the four social orders arrived to see the sacrificial performance. As the sacrifice proceeded, the ritual of first worship had to be performed, and the members of the assembly were called upon to decide who would receive this honor. Who is the most honorable person in the assembly? Good luck if you have to choose that, right? Sometimes we have a conflict when you go around with the flame. okay, 4 Prabhupada disciples and 1 sannyasi, but the other one is senior, but the third one has more disciples. It's not always so easy. Sahadev spoke up. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is indeed the most exalted person, for he himself comprises all the deities worshipped by Vedic sacrifice. In his role as the Supersoul in the heart, he arranges for everyone in the universe to engage in his particular kind of work. And by his mercy alone, human beings can perform various kinds of pious activities and receive the resultant benefits. One who worships him worships all living entities. Surely, Lord Krishna should be worshipped first. We agree? Yes? Okay. Nearly everyone in the assembly agreed with Sahadev's proposal and loudly congratulated him. Thus King Yudhishthira happily worshipped Lord Krishna. After bathing his feet, the king took the wash water and sprinkled it on his head, and his wives, younger brothers, ministers and relatives also sprinkled that water on their heads. Then everyone shouted, "All victory, all victory," and bowed down to Lord Krishna as flowers rained down from above. Shishupal, however, could not tolerate this worship and glorification of Sri Krishna. He stood up from his seat and harshly rebuked the wise elders for choosing Krishna to be worshipped first. After all, he said, this Krishna is outside the system of Vedic social and spiritual orders and the society of respectable families. He follows no principles of religion and he has no good qualities. It's not me saying it, it's Sisupal. Even as Sisupal continued to blaspheme him in this way, Lord Krishna remained silent. But many members of the assembly covered their ears and quickly left the hall, while the Pandava brothers raised their weapons and prepared to kill Sisupal. It's quite a scene, no? Lord Krishna stopped them from attacking, however, and instead used his Sudarshan disc to decapitate the offender. At that moment, an effulgent spark of light rose out of Sisupal's dead body and entered the transcendental body of Lord Krishna. Having lived through 3 births as the enemy of the Lord, Sisupal now attained the liberation of Sayuja Mukti, merging into him by dint of his constant meditation on him. King Yudhishthira then distributed profuse gifts to the respected guests of the assembly and to the priests. And finally, he executed the purificatory oblations known as the Prayaschitta Homa, which counteract errors made during the sacrifice. Yudhishthira's Rajasuya sacrifice having now been completed, Lord Krishna took his leave from the king and set off for Dwarka in the company of his wives and ministers. Duryodhana could not bear to see this abundant manifestation of King Yudhishthira's prosperity, but apart from him, everyone happily praised the glories of the Rajasuya sacrifice and of the Lord of all sacrifices, Sri Krishna. So that was the summary of this chapter. Nice, no? Text 1. We will not repeat text 1, we will repeat text 2. I will read Sanskrit and translation of text 1. Sri Sukha uvacha evam Yudhishthiro Raja Jarasandha vadam vivo Krishnasya chanubhavantam srutva pritastam abravit. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, having thus heard of the killing of Jarasandha and also of Almighty Krishna's wonderful power, King Yudhishthira addressed the Lord as follows, with great pleasure. Text number 2. Please repeat. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusashanam. Shirasaivanusasanam. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusashanam. Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusashanam.
Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Yeshus Trailokya-gram Gurava.
Yeshus Trailokya Gurava.
Sarvaloka Maheshwara.
Sarve Loka Maheshwara.
Pahanti Durlabam Labdva.
Pahanti Durlabam Labdva.
Shirasaivanusasanam.
Shirasaivanusasanam. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusasanam. Vaishnavis, please. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusasanam. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Yeshus Trailokya Gurava. Sarve Loka Maheshwara. Pahanti Durlabam Labdva. Shirasaivanusasanam. Thank you. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha. Sri Yudhishthira said. Yea, who, Shu, there are, Trailokya, of the three worlds, Guravaha, spiritual masters, Sarve, all, Loka, the inhabitants of the planets, Maha Ishvara, and the great controlling demigods. Vahanti, they carry. Durlabam, rarely obtained. Labdva, having obtained. Shirasha, on their heads. Eva, indeed. Anushasanam, your command. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Yudhishthira said, all the exalted spiritual masters of the three worlds, together with the inhabitants and rulers of the various planets, carry on their heads your command, which is rarely obtained. Purport. Srila Prabhupada renders Maharaj Yudhishthira's statement as follows. My dear Krishna, O eternal form of bliss and knowledge, all the exalted directors of the affairs of this material world, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and King Indra, are always anxious to receive and carry out orders from you. And whenever they are fortunate enough to receive such orders, they immediately take them and keep them in their hearts. Text once more. Sri Yudhishthira said, all the exalted spiritual masters of the three worlds, together with the inhabitants and rulers of the various planets, carry on their heads your command, which is rarely obtained. So I want to use this opening with the mercy of the assembled Vaishnavas and all the senior devotees in this temple room, to discuss together, maybe you can also have the microphone ready, you have, to discuss together the main instructions of Krishna that we receive in the Bhagavad-gita. Now, of course, I made a compilation of certain instructions from the Bhagavad-gita that are relevant for everyone, but these are also quite relevant for myself, of course. I'm sure that if you would meditate on different instructions of the Bhagavad-gita, you would come up with another top 10 list of instructions, because Krishna is in our heart. He's having a very personal relationship with ourselves. And at the same time, we are all in different stages of consciousness. We are all on different levels of the path of Krishna consciousness. So, depending on the level of Krishna consciousness that we are, we feel attracted to certain instructions. Certain instructions might be too high or not so relevant for our stage in life. So I think it's very interesting to dive a little bit deeper into the Bhagavad-gita, because Bhagavad-gita, especially when you discuss 10th canto for many, many years or months, like we do, we are in the 74th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, and we are also on Sundays discussing, of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the postgraduate study. Sometimes it's good to go back to the basics, the basic instructions that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad-gita. And these instructions are ecstatic, according to Sanjaya. Sanjaya is saying, Rajan samsmritya samsmritya. Whenever I remember this conversation between Keshava and Arjuna, then Rishyami cha muhu muhu. He says, I'm excited, I'm thrilled, I'm happy, I'm blissful. Whenever I recall, this word samsmritya means remembering again and again. It's not just once reading the Gita and then, okay, I have read Bhagavad-gita. No, Sanjaya says, when I recall, when I remember and remember and remember and remember the instructions that Krishna gave to Arjuna, I become Rishyami cha muhu muhu. Again, 2 times. Muhu muhu means again and again. I become thrilled. I become excited. I become ecstatic. So we can start the Bhagavad-gita from the beginning all the way to the end, and we start over again and over again and over again. And because our consciousness gets more and more purified and elevated, we will see different, deeper levels of the Bhagavad-gita. Apuyamanam achalo pratishtam samudram apal samupaichayadvat. The end of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna advises us to go deep in our Krishna consciousness, like the ocean. Because the ocean seems to be always full, but it doesn't matter how many rivers enter the ocean, rainy season or dry season, the ocean is always the same. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that just like the streams of the rivers of material desires, they enter our mind, but when we are deep in Krishna consciousness, then We will not be disturbed by this incessant flow of thoughts and desires. So that is interesting. So I was thinking to start chanting together this verse from the Gita Mahatmya. Please repeat. Maline mochanam pumsam jalashnanam dine dine sakrit gitamritam snanam samsara malanashanam. This is a verse from Lord Shiva, who is saying, the first sentence is very, not very deep knowledge. It says, Maline mochanam pumsam. You know, if you want to clean your body, Maline mochanam. If a human being wants to clean himself, jalashnanam dine dine. Jalashnanam means you take a bath. Snanam, and those who follow the deity worship course, they will hear a lot about Snanam. So Jala Snanam, the shower of water, Dine means daily. So if you want to purify your body, you go to the shower every day. It makes sense, no? It's not such a deep wisdom of Lord Shiva. But then, Sakrit Gita Amritam Snanam Samsara Malanashanam. But if you take bath, just like when you take bath in a bathroom, you go deep inside the water, nice warm water with shampoo. You really go deep in the water. So nice, your body is clean. But here Shiva says, Sakrit Gita Amritam Snanam Samsara Mala Nashanam. So if you absorb yourself, taking a bath in the nectarian waters of the Bhagavad-gita, Gita Amrita, the nectar of the Bhagavad-gita, Snanam. It doesn't mean you just open Bhagavad-gita for 1 minute and you just touch it. No, it means, Snanam means full bath. You take a full bath in the bath of the Bhagavad-gita. And then what happens? Samsara Mala Nashanam. Samsara Mala. Mala means dirt. Just like you see, Maline Mochanam Pumsam. When you're dirty, you take a water bath. But here it says Samsara Mala. The dirt that is in your heart accumulated from samsara, from millions of births, Nashanam, destroyed. When is the dirt destroyed of all these millions of lifetimes? How is it destroyed?
When you take a bath in the lake of Bhagavad-gita.
If you take a bath in the lake of the Bhagavad-gita. That means, taking a bath means, what is another word for taking bath? What could be a synonym in this context?
Diving deep.
Diving deep. Emerging. I look for another word. Shower. Cleaning, yes, that's the Malanashanam. You clean all the dirt. Submerged. What about the word absorption? You absorb yourself in the Bhagavad-gita. And that is wonderful. Rishyami cha muhu. I'm thrilled at every moment when you absorb yourself in it. Vishwa, would you like to read the translation? So that I can drink some water.
One may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water. But if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad-gita, for him the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished.
So how many of you have managed to at least one time in this lifetime became fully absorbed in Bhagavad-gita? Means you lose yourself. You read, you intend to read half an hour, and then suddenly 3 hours later you think, oh my God, amazing, 3 hours have passed. This is called absorption, attraction to the pages of the Bhagavad-gita. So, one question I have for the audience, just reflect for yourself, just maybe half a minute. Is there a main instruction in the Bhagavad-gita that is especially relevant for you at this stage, or appealing to you, or is it an instruction from the Gita that you really apply at this moment?
Krishna says to think of
Can we have the microphone?
For me, lately it's that Krishna says that you should think of him, only of him, and like when we do devotional service, like practice chanting Hare Krishna, there are so many thoughts in the mind coming, so then it's if you want to be successful in spiritual life, you need to stop thinking about yourself and start thinking of Krishna. So.
Very nice. So, absorption in thinking of Krishna. Yes, there was one Mataji, yeah. We just do a few minutes because otherwise there will be no overview of the 10 instructions.
Yeah, for me the last verse of 1866, when Krishna instructs, just surrender to me.
Just surrender unto me. That's a very famous instruction of Krishna, but it's also the most difficult to apply. Yes? Anyone else? Yes? Lakshmi Priya? Tulsi Priya, sorry. Can you explain? Not everybody understands Sanskrit.
Okay, so basically Lord Krishna says that one is not bewildered, a wise person is not bewildered by changing the bodies from childhood to old age. Unfortunately, I'm still not there.
So you see the Hinyas Minyata Dehe also as an instruction, right? This is interesting. Actually, every verse in the Gita can be taken as an instruction. It's true. Anyone else? A few more? Yes, Prabhu? Murlimana Prabhu? Can you take the microphone because there are some devotees listening online and then they get also the benefit.
It's from the 6th chapter where Krishna says, from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering nature, one must certainly bring it back under control with the self.
Very interesting.
That's always a challenge, trying to do that.
So we have to do this yato nischalati. We have to do this like millions of times per day. Isn't it? It's not just one time the mind wanders, okay, I endeavor to pull it back. But it is like, if you want to apply this yato nischalati verse, bring it back under the control of the self, then you have to do it millions of times per day. Pull it back, pull it back. It's a very exhausting exercise. And therefore most devotees just think, it's too much, let my mind just, let's do. Prabhu, you have any specific instructions from Gita where you feel like this is really appealing to me?
Just starting from 1-1 to 1878.
From?
1-1 to 1878.
Okay, so all the 700? Yes. Anyone else? One more? Benny?
You have to know
1 second.
the great. You have to know the greatness of Krishna to can be steady in devotional service for him, to him.
Is this referring to the verse Etam vibhutim yogam sthya mama yogati tattvataha? In this verse, it's in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, the opulences of the Absolute. I think it's number 7, just before the Chatushloki, where Krishna says that if you are fully aware of my opulences, if you're fully aware of my opulences, then you undoubtedly will start engaging in devotional service. In other words, if your sambandha is strong, you know your position, you know the greatness of Krishna, then that will be an impetus for abhideya and start actually devotional service. So yeah, to become aware of the greatness of God is a trigger to engage in devotional service. Jai Sri Radha Gopinath Lalita Vishaka Devi Ki Jai. Madani Kunya Rasini, you have also. Can we have the microphone?
I was thinking of worshiping me and pay your homage unto me, because it's something we do every day, but to do it consciously or even personally, sometimes it becomes so impersonal, you just do it. And to do that consciously, it could be a nice meditation for the day.
Satatam ketayantu mam yatantascha vridavrataha namasyantascha mamakcha. Namasyantas is pay your obeisance to me, bhaktya with devotion. So I mean, devotion means you put your mind and your heart in the activity, in love, with love. Always glorifying me, satatam kirtayantamam, yatantas jadradavitaha. Worship me with great determination, pay your obeisances with devotion. These are some symptoms of the Mahatmas, of the great souls. So nice. So everybody has his own favorite instruction. Is there? That's it. The last one. You.
I was thinking about Ekacakra-gram and to see the soul in everybody, to see actually as dear to Krishna, but it's kind of attractive to me. trying
To see a learned brahmana and a cow and a dog eater with equal vision. This is Pandita Samadarshana. Very nice. So it's very inspiring to meditate on the instructions of Krishna. So I picked 10 with one bonus one. I don't know if we will be able to finish all the instructions. I don't want to rush it. At the same time, it's also nice to have an overview, of course. But let's see what happens in the coming half an hour, okay? So it's not chronological, although there is some sequence in it. And for me, I started with a first instruction that is, I think, particularly relevant for all of us, is to approach a bona fide spiritual master. In the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking with Sanatana Goswami, he gave 64 different limbs of devotional service. I don't know all 64 by heart. Anyone knows all the 64 limbs of devotional service by heart? But the first 5 are all related to spiritual masters. Ado Guru Padasrayan Diksha Guruire Sevate. It says that first of all you have to surrender to a guru. That's the first. I'm always surprised. All the 64 limbs, the first one is Guru Pada Asrayan. Is you approach a spiritual master and you surrender. Asrayan means you fully surrender to the spiritual master. That's the first one. And the second one, out of the 64, Diksha. Hey, wait a minute, don't rush it, don't rush it. It goes very fast, you know. You open the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 64 elements of Bhakti. The first one, surrender to Guru. The second one, take Diksha. And the third one is Gurura Sevake. You start engaging in serving the spiritual master. Anyone knows what's the fourth one?
Inquire from him?
Yes. Yes. Saddharma Sikha Prichanam. Sikha means you inquire for instructions, please. And Saddharma means eternal religion. Give me instructions about the eternal occupation of the soul. Saddharma Sikha Prichanam. In other words, sometimes it's translated as inquiring from the spiritual master how to advance in spiritual life. So you approach spiritual master, you surrender, you take initiation, you start serving him, and then you start to inquire, my dear Lord, my dear spiritual master, how can I make spiritual advancement? How did you attain to this stage of Krishna consciousness? Like, who was doing this? In the Bhagavatam at the beginning, Srila Vyasadeva, he was very confused. His spiritual master appeared on the scene and he said, "Oh, Narada Muni, my Guruji, how did you attain to this amazing stage of Krishna consciousness? Because I'm so confused and you're so fixed up. Tell me." And then he told the whole story, how he associated with the 4 traveling sages, etc. And the 5th one? Very good. Sadhu Marga Anugamanam. Sadhu Marga Anugamanam. You not only inquire from the spiritual master, how can I make spiritual advancement? But you also inquire that, how can I follow in the footsteps of you and the previous acharyas? Sadhu Marga. Marga means a road. Anugamanam. The road that the previous sadhus took and walked. How can I also walk that road? So it means Sato Vritte, one of the 6 favorable aspects of devotional service is Sato Vritte, is to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So all 5 of the first instructions or limbs of devotional service are all related to approaching a spiritual master and surrendering to him. So let's chant this famous verse. Tat vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadashina. Interesting is the word tat. Tat vidi. Where does it refer to? I mean, because if you start a Sanskrit sentence with tat, it means there must have been something discussed before. That you should try to understand by approaching a spiritual master. So what should we try to understand from a spiritual master? What is previous to text 34 of this chapter? Anyone knows? Beginning of the 4th chapter is about Krishna, how he is not born and how he comes to protect the devotees and annihilate the demons. So it's more about Krishna. But then it's discussed the different sacrifices that we can undergo in this lifetime. You can follow Varnashram Dharma system, you can be a very strict brahmachari, you can perform yajnas by studying the Vedas, you can give up material possessions, you can do different fire sacrifices. So there are many different yajnas, sacrifices described. And then the conclusion in text 33 is that there is a difference between merely giving up your possessions and sacrifices that are done in full knowledge. So merely giving up your possessions is lower, but sacrificing with transcendental knowledge, that is actually much better. So tat vidi pranipatane. That transcendental knowledge you have to learn from a spiritual master. So there are 3 aspects. Pranipatena means? Pranipat means you approach a spiritual master. Then pariprashnena means you inquire submissively. And sevaya means you serve. Vishwa, could you read the translation? Who has the microphone?
Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Right. So I think very relevant for all of us, even if you are 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years in the movement, we should still follow in this mood of, I'm the servant of my spiritual master. And we can see that by the example of Srila Prabhupada, how he was always feeling himself more a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur than a spiritual master of his disciples. So it's very important instruction. I think everything starts with approaching a spiritual master and inquire and serve and surrender. Agree? Everyone agrees? Yes. Rupa Goswami, he's giving us this indication. Now let's go to the next one, which for me is very, very relevant, and maybe it's also relevant for you. Please look at the slide. You think this is relevant? The very first instruction that Krishna gives, real instruction to Arjuna, is you tolerate. Yeah? Is it easy? Is it easy to tolerate? No? Maybe you should go to the verse. Please repeat. Matras pashas tu kanteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agama nitya tam sitikshashva bharata. So which Sanskrit word is tolerate? Titiksha. Yeah. What means matras pashas? Sense perception, yeah. No. Matras pashas mean to touch, it's a sensual touch. Sita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha, Da. What does that mean? Sukha is happiness, Dukkha is distress, but it's compared to? Yes, Sita and Ushna. Sita is winter, Ushna is summer. So the appearance and disappearance of summer and winter, we have to tolerate. You cannot imagine how many people are talking about, not just talking about, but complaining about the weather. It's too hot, it's too dry, it's too wet, it's too cold, it's too windy.
Mostly everyone is inside the building, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're a whole day in the office, like I know very well, staying 8 hours in an office. Wow, it's really terrible weather outside. It's okay. What is the relevance here? We are inside. Agama apayino nityas. It comes, and it goes. This is an eternal cycle of coming and going, of happiness and distress, just like it's an eternal cycle of summer and winter seasons. So what should we do, Krishna? Tam stitikshashva. You tolerate. Very simple instruction. Can you read, Vishwa?
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Sayanampara, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Tolerate is the instruction. Now when Kapila Muni was instructing his mother Devahuti, he was talking about devotees, and he gave many qualities of the devotees, but the first three, Titikshava, Karunika, Surida, Savadeinam. He gave three top qualification of a devotee. The first one is Titikshava. My dear mother, the symptom of a Vaishnava is that he or she tolerates. And then, next one is Karunika, that he is very compassionate. And the third one is Surida Savadehinam. He is the friend of all embodied beings. Dehinam is one who is in a body. So all living entities in this material universe, he is considering himself having a friendly relationship with all living entities. Now, I think it's one slide that I used before. We discussed this a little bit. If we talk about the three kleshas, because usually when you have to tolerate something, usually it's related to suffering, no? Although, in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita, Krishna also says, Sukeshu vikataspriha, dukeshu anuvikta manaha. You have to tolerate unhappiness, but you also have to tolerate happiness in this material world. So that's sometimes a little bit confusing, but usually when you think about you have to tolerate something, you tolerate unhappiness, no? You tolerate suffering. Now there are three levels of suffering: Adhyatmic, Adhibautic, Adhidevik. Suffering that comes from the mind and the body, I think we have to tolerate. Suffering that comes from Adhidevik means natural disturbances, intense drought or hurricanes or whatever. We also have to tolerate it. But when we speak about Adhibautic klesh, suffering that comes from other living entities, one level is to tolerate, but there is also another word for titikshava, means ksanti. Ksanti is also many times translated as to tolerate, ksantir arjavam, you have to tolerate. But ksanti also means to forgive. We have discussed that in a previous presentation, right? So I was thinking, when we talk about adhibautika, suffering that is caused by others, maybe other devotees, or mosquitoes, or non-devotees that give us a hard time, then I think the passive attitude is you tolerate. But if you tolerate, it can also be with a cold heart. You know? I really hate this person, but anyway, let me tolerate, you know. Tolerate it. Isn't it? Sometimes you feel like that inside, you know. Yes, I tolerate it. But inside there is a lot of intolerance still, right? But externally you tolerate it. So if you think about Adibhautik, then I think a more active way of the word Kshantir or Titikshava is forgiving. And to forgive is the first symptom of a person who has attained the level of bhava. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita there are 9 symptoms of a person who attained bhava. And the first one is forgive. And we mentioned that before, that before giving anything to anyone, you first have to forgive. So the cold translation of Titikshava is you tolerate. If it's related to other living entities, you not only tolerate, but you also try to forgive. And if you don't forgive, are you able to give? If you have grudges against someone, we discussed the example of the greatest enemy of you in this community. You really don't like this devotee, and then this devotee comes to the Mahaprasadam and you serve the Mahaprasadam. And this devotee points, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, give me more, give me more of this. And then you feel like, oh, I cannot stand this. And then you even serve a little bit harshly, you almost splash it on the plate. So it's very difficult to give if you didn't forgive. Make sense or not? So first you forgive that person, and then you want to give sampradaya, Krishna Prema Pradaya. It's a chain of disciplic succession where the members of this sampradaya, of this parampara, they are givers. Unconditional giving is what actually sampradaya means. A complete gift of mercy to anyone and everyone that we meet. So therefore, before giving, be forgiving. Yeah? Before giving, be forgiving. Makes sense, I hope. So this is the second instruction that I think is a nice meditation from the Gita. Don't tolerate only, also try to forgive. And then you can give. And that's the purpose of this movement.
In the picture.
Can you give the microphone?
Yes. In the picture behind this Lord Chaitanya is there, and he was teaching to be tolerant as a tree, but in this pastime he is going to kill them.
Yes.
So in which case do we tolerate, and in which case do we become fire?
It's a very good question. And who was hurt in this pastime? Lord Nityananda. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took the proper action because he showed by example that we should not tolerate if other devotees are hurt or offended. We have to do something about it. We should not be passive. Don't say for example, if Ekacakra-gram gets a pot thrown in and he's bleeding, and then we say, and then, maybe Nikunya Vasini threw the pot. I don't think so, but let's say Nikunya Vasini threw the pot, and then I say, hey Keshava, just tolerate it, She's a nice devotee, just tolerate it. No, we have to do something about it. We have to discuss it, we have to... But in this example that you give, also Lord Nityananda's mood showed extreme tolerance. And that's exactly what we show here in these 3 levels. Nityananda Prabhu, he not just tolerated it. He forgave, and after that he arranged that this person, Madai, actually got Krishna Prema. So the ultimate gift was given. Therefore Nityananda Maham Naomi Savananda Karamparam Harinama Pradam Deva Avadutam Siromanim. Therefore we glorify Lord Nityananda by saying that he's not only a madman, he's not only an Avaduta Siromanim, the crest jewel of all the madmen, but he is the giver of the holy name. Harinama Pradam Devam. He's that Lord that gives us the holy name. And he gives us also the example, he teaches us by example how to be forgiving, how to tolerate. But of course we should not kill the person who offends. We have to try to convince him with words that this is not proper behavior and rectify. Okay? Ready for the third one? It goes too slow and we will not be able to finish. I'm so sorry. Stop lamenting. These are relevant for myself because there is always reason to lament. How many of you are able to not lament? Are you sometimes catching yourself? Like, oh my God, I'm lamenting like anything. And then you stop yourself. Oh my God, okay, let me read Bhagavad-gita. Right? So let's chant this verse. Avyaktoyam achintoyam avikayo yamuchyate tashmatevam viditvainam nanu sochitum arasi. So what is the word not lamenting in Sanskrit? Na anusochitum. Socha. You remember the word socha means to lament. So na anusochitum arasi. At any time you should not lament. Why should we not lament? Because you are a soul. Krishna says you are a soul. Avyaktoyam, achintoyam, avikeyoyam. You're inconceivable, you're indestructible, you're immutable. Knowing this, you stop lamenting, please. Why is this relevant? That when you really become aware that you are a spiritual entity that cannot be destroyed, then what is the link between that knowledge and stopping with lamentation? Why is this relevant? Who has the mic? Yes?
Fearless.
Yes? One of the aspects of the soul is that you're eternal. Sat. So what is there to lament if you are eternal? It's just a heartbeat in time. This lifetime is just a heartbeat in our whole existential experience. So it's just one lifetime is like this. So one moment in this lifetime is just so insignificant that you should not lament. Anyone else has an idea why, knowing that you are indestructible, that you're eternal, why would that stop lamentation if you're really aware of that fact? Anyone?
Usually we lament about all the material things,
Right.
and mental things, and
Yes.
emotional things. So if we are not connected to that, then
Yes.
we can just let go.
We are lamenting about temporary things which are not real. They are not, based on reality. It's flickering. It's coming and going. So why should you lament? The first verse of the second chapter of the Gita, Tam tata kripaya vishtam. Krishna starts to speak after Arjuna gave so many arguments why he could not fight. Then Krishna was saying that seeing Arjuna overwhelmed, this is Sanjay's verse, seeing Arjuna overwhelmed by compassion, grief, and his mind depressed, Madhusudan spoke. The whole reason why the Gita was spoken was because Arjuna was lamenting. You got this point? The whole reason why the Gita is spoken was because Arjuna was confused and was lamenting, depressed. And Prabhupada says in the purport something very interesting, that material compassion, lamentation and tears are all signs of ignorance of the real self. And then he says, compassion for the eternal soul is self-realization. I always remember this part of the purport. It's such a nice thing. So to lament about the body is ignorance. To lament about the eternal soul is called self-realization. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example, he has written so many lamentations, isn't it? Oh, I'm so fallen, nobody is more fallen than me. Or Narottam Das Thakur. Why didn't I see Krishna? Why did I waste my life? So you could say, why are you lamenting? But they lament about the soul. And this is called self-realization. Rohini Prabhu.
Yeah, I was at my dentist a few months ago, and the dentist is a devotee, and he was working my tooth, and I was feeling so much pain. And then he said, you can repeat 10 times, I'm not the body, I'm not the body, I'm not the body, but still you will lament, you will suffer. So at this point, because it's not that I suffer because I identify with the body, but everybody feels pain, But at this point we should apply the tolerance, no?
Yes, absolutely.
The suffering will be always there.
And forgive the dentist. And giving her a book afterwards if it's not on the order. Yes, so I think if you become aware of the fact that we are eternal souls and that this material world is a place of suffering, while you are sitting in the dentist chair, you get full realization of the suffering of this material world. But it's also temporary, so with a smile we think, tomorrow it's okay. Okay? Please read, you can read Rohini approved translation.
It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body.
Actually, there are 4 sufferings of the body, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. But for a devotee, all these 4 can become an impetus for engaging or absorbing in spiritual life. Like, for example, those how many of you are above 60 years old? Yes, above 60 years old. So the body is aging, the energy is going down. So what could be the impetus for having a body that is growing older? Maybe Nikunja Vasini can say a few words about the benefits of aging. Can be a new topic of a class, the benefits of aging.
Well, because time is short, it makes you more serious. Because when you get time is counting more seriously. So, and also there's more time to be serious because the family life is over, children are gone, and life usually becomes more simple. So then there's more time for spiritual life.
Yes, maybe also another, yes. Let's hear from our experienced devotees.
Less passion.
Yes, that I was also thinking, the passions they reduce. You become more in goodness and you can be less worried about temporary things.
Less about temporary things.
Yes, because how many years you have, so.
Because the thing is, I experience it.
Please give the microphone. We want to hear from you, Prabhu.
The thing, at least in my experience, the thing that's quite obvious, death is close. The body is falling apart, and you're witnessing it right in front of you, and you have experiences where you come close to death. A number of devotees I know similar age to me have been to the hospital, they have surgery and stuff like that, and it could have just gone the other way, and you could have died. So you really have this clear perception of how close death is, and at any moment you could die. And therefore it changes your perception, and things that used to be important to you are no longer important. And what Prabhupada's explaining to us in the Gita and the Bhagavad-gita, etc., that starts to become more important because you realise you've got to sort it out pretty quick because you don't have very long left.
It's like Katvanga Maharaj, when he was fighting for the demigods. It was Katvanga Maharaj, I think. Then when he defeated the demons, then the demigod said, now you can ask for a blessing. And he said, I want to be immortal or something. And then the demigod says, we are not immortal, so we cannot give. And then ask for another blessing. And Katvanga Maharaj said, can you tell me how much more time I have in this lifetime? And some say it was 12 minutes, and others say it was a few seconds. But it says, there's one purport where it says a few minutes, when he realized that he had only a few minutes to live, then he says, send me back to the earth immediately, so I will sit down near the holy river and meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord, so that I can pass away from this world in Krishna consciousness. So if you know that time is getting shorter, you also become much more serious in spiritual life. Maybe another aspect also of growing older is that all your friends, many of them, they pass away. Like my mother is 84, and a few years ago she said, oh, but I'm surrounded with those who I'm having a relationship with. But then, husband dies, then your neighbor dies, and your best friend dies, and this one dies. And gradually you become more and more isolated, which is, if you don't have Krishna, it's a very fearful situation. But if you are developing your Krishna consciousness, that can also be an impetus to really connect with Krishna, really deepen your relationship with Krishna.
Yeah, because Srila Prabhupada said that we have an ISKCON in the spiritual world. So that will
Srila Prabhupada says, can you repeat?
He said that Srila Prabhupada mentioned that there is an ISKCON in the spiritual world. So we will all be together again.
Yeah.
All the friends that we are losing now.
Wonderful.
We will be together again.
I hope everybody is happy with this news. One time they told me when I just became temple president, they said, there is a special planet where you go after you die for temple presidents. I said, oh no! I don't know if you all want that, planet with all temple presidents. Hare Krishna. Can be quite a scene. So we do quickly the last one. Actually, all 10 are really nice, but we don't have much time. And we have a bonus one, which is an 11th one, but that will be for some time in the future. This one is a very important one also. Work according to your nature. So we have a wonderful visit. In 2 weeks from now, Mother Urmila will visit Radhadesh down for 2 weeks with the specific purpose to find out, all of us, what is our swadharma, what is our nature, which is very important. There are 2 verses in the Bhagavad-gita that repeat itself. That's the Man Mana Bhava Mat Bhakto verse. You have like almost duplicate, one in the 9th chapter, one in the 18th chapter. But we also have this verse, we can chant together. Shrayam Swadharmo Viguna Paradharma Svanushtita Svabhavaniyatam Karma Kurvan Apnoti Kilbisham. Shrayam means it's better. What is better? Swadharmo Viguna. Swadharma means working according to your nature. So it's better to work according to your nature. Viguna. Guna means with quality. Viguna means with not very good qualities. You do your swadharma, but not very perfectly. Prabhupada he translates viguna as imperfectly. So it's better to do your own dharma imperfectly than paradharma. Paradharma means your dharma. It's better to do my dharma imperfectly than that I do your dharma. So, anushtitat means perfectly. So Krishna is speaking to who? To Arjuna. Wow, that's good. To Arjuna. So what was the proposal of Arjuna?
I got back as a Brahmana.
I'm going to beg, I prefer to live a life of a beggar and stop acting and just do meditation. Krishna says 2 times, in the 3rd chapter, 35th verse, and in the 18th chapter, 47th verse. Krishna says it's better to do your own dharma imperfectly than to do somebody else's dharma perfectly. Svabhava niyatam karma. Svabhava means according to your nature. Svabhava niyatam. You act according to your nature. If you do that, na apnoti kilbisham. There will be no sinful reactions when you perfectly act according to your own nature. Kilbisham means to sinful. Can you read the translation?
It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions.
Very good. So let me ask you one last question. How many of you are writing right-handed? How many of you are right-handed? You? Anyone left-handed? Left-handed? Okay. Now let's do an exercise. I mean, you don't have to do it, but for the next week, you do everything with the other hand.
Everything like that.
So writing, for example. You now start writing with your other hand.
What if I don't write that in the beginning?
Let's say that you do a lot of writing, but now the exercise is you don't write with your good hand, but with your other hand. So if you meditate on that and if you do it, then there will be a few results. What could be a result?
Slow.
It's slow.
You can't read what you write.
You freak out. It's not efficient. Yes.
You don't understand your handwriting.
You don't even understand the handwriting.
You don't want to write anymore.
You don't want to write anymore? So what is the feeling when now suddenly I have to start writing with my wrong hand?
Wrong dharma.
Wrong dharma. Eh?
But if you practice, you become perfect.
Yes, but the exercise is here that if you do something that is not according to your nature, that is the idea behind the exercise. Of course, if you practice a long time, but that's the whole idea here. You can do it. That is the word svanushtita, means you do somebody else's dharma perfectly. But if that's not according to your real nature, then it will create inefficiency, it will create chaos in your life, it creates frustration, etc., etc.
So if you do somebody else's dharma, you do it perfectly. So if it's not your dharma, how can you do it?
Well, for example, it could be that Arjuna goes to the forest and that for some time he seems to be perfectly in meditation, but his nature is so much, it comes out, that nature of, the kshatriya qualities, they will come out. So you can do somebody else's service for a while, but if it's not according to your real dharma, it will create havoc. You will start interpreting that service of the other person in a way that's according to your own. So for example, if I would now become a pujari, I can maybe learn how to dress Radha Gopinath perfectly. But my nature is so different that it will be very difficult for me to be a full-time pujari because I have other skills, other motivations, other things that drive me in life, that enthuse me in life. So of course it's good to sometimes do deity worship because it's purifying, and grihasthas they should do. But if they say you stop talking, you stop managing, now you become a pujari, then I would not blossom in Krishna service. It would be very difficult.
I can imagine Arjuna meditating and then going begging, and some rich man refuses. What?
Yeah, this is not the nature. Don't copy. So I have to end this little presentation. Yes, Prabhu, you want to say something?
But another aspect of it, because it's not your nature, is you become you can do it, because the requirement's there or whatever, there's a need, but you're not satisfied.
Right.
So your mind becomes disturbed.
Yes.
And so
That's a very important point.
meant to be engaged according to nature, because then when you engage according to nature, and this is the importance of varnashram, you engage according to nature, you're able to peacefully execute whatever the service is, and you advance in Krishna consciousness. But if it's not your nature, it becomes an impediment to your advancement in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's actually said that you can only work with full detachment if the work itself gives you the energy and the drive. And if you do somebody else's dharma and it's not your nature, you always hanker for some reward. Because you become tired, exhausted mentally and physically, so you want to get a reward. But if you do something that's according to your nature, then that service itself is energizing you. Okay? Yes?
Krishna is speaking to Arjuna this, but actually Arjuna had already done that a few times. He dressed like a brahmana, even to go to Jarasandha, or when He was when they were
In hiding.
yeah, in exile. Yeah. So he had already experimented this. It was just a thought.
So, and what was Jarasanda's thought when he saw Arjuna and Bhima and Krishna coming dressed as brahmanas? Was he immediately fooled? Was he convinced? Oh, these are brahmanas.
Yeah, and he said they don't seem at all brahmanas.
That's the thing. That's exactly the point. Maybe we can end this presentation by hearing from Srila Prabhupada. What is this story imbibing? Huh? Gajendra? Yes, it's the Gajendra Moksha Lila. Who is normally stronger? The elephant. So why was the elephant defeated by the crocodile? Because in a foreign environment. So maybe Vishnu Prabhu, could you read what Prabhupada says in that purport?
Now, from this way we may take the lesson that in our fight with Maya, we should not be in a position in which our strength, enthusiasm and senses will be unable to fight vigorously. Our Krishna consciousness movement has actually declared war against the illusory energy in which all the living entities are rotting in a false understanding of civilization. The soldiers in this Krishna consciousness movement must always possess physical strength, enthusiasm and sensual power. To keep themselves fit, they must therefore place themselves in a normal condition of life. What constitutes a normal condition will not be the same for everyone, and therefore there are divisions of varnashram: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sanya.
Very clear. No? Prabhupada says we are not all the same. So what is a normal condition of life for one person is not a normal condition of life for another person. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport of the Bhagavad-gita, where this Swadharma is described, he says that you should make a distinction between a person who is free from the modes. He can act in whatever way. A Vaishya can be a Brahmana, a Kshatriya can work as a Brahmana can work as a Kshatriya, if you are beyond the modes of material nature. But if you're still influenced by the modes of material nature, it's very important that you follow your Swadharma. So you situate yourself in the right ashram, in the right varna, and then you will have enough strength to fight Maya. Yes?
What does he mean with sensual power?
Well, if you're not yet, the question is, what do you mean with sensual, what does Prabhupada mean with sensual power? And maybe the senior devotees can correct me if I'm wrong. But if you're not yet on a very high Krishna conscious level, then your physical status will definitely influence your enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness. So if you are sick, I remember Mother Nikonyavasini saying that many years ago, when you would be sick, then you would just have to adjust your schedule and sleep, and you will not be able to vigorously practice sadhana bhakti. But because now you're in such a strict sadhana regime, even when you become sick, you stay in the same routine of waking up early, chanting the rounds, etc., etc. So, depending on the level of your Krishna consciousness, if you're not yet so absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then your physical well-being actually immediately influences the way you practice Krishna consciousness. So if you want to fight Maya, you have to be mentally strong, physically strong, be enthusiastic, do service, isn't it? If you're sick in Vrindavan and you're not yet so advanced, you only sleep and you lament and you think, what is this place? I want to go home. But if you are higher in the level of Krishna consciousness, then you can even see it as an impetus to become more serious in spiritual life. So the more we are in the modes of material nature, the more important it is that we are situated according to our ashram and our perfect fire.
That's what he says about physical strength. Is that what you mean? Physical strength, you have to wake up, and
Yes. If you're all the time tired and you cannot wake up early, then you cannot change your rounds and then you're just wishy-washy.
And how is that different than sensual power?
Well, maybe anyone else would like to comment? Would you like to say something? Well, what's the difference between physical power and sensual power, and how does that influence our Krishna consciousness? Would you like to comment on that?
Between physical power and sensual power?
Yeah, here it's, here it
Physical
says,
strength, physical strength or sensual power. What is the difference?
yeah. Here it says, if you want to fight Maya, the soldiers in this Krishna conscious movement must always possess physical strength, enthusiasm, and sensual power.
Yeah, it's just like when you become weakened, and I've seen this happen many times over the years, when you're in a state where your health is weak or broken arm or something like that, then one can easily be deluded by Maya. But if you're sensually strong, it's not meaning like you're indulging the senses, but you're able to control the senses, you're able to control the mind because of your inner strength, spiritual strength, then you can easily avoid Maya.
Yeah, I agree. Personally, when I'm getting very sick, I'm not always very inspired in spiritual life. And when I feel healthy, you can easily focus on your service and on your sadhana.
It's even like, sometimes you experience like if you don't sleep well, it's okay for a night, 1 or 2 days, but it goes on and on and on and on. It's like, it's really hard to be enthusiastic.
Yeah. So I think that is the meaning. All right, so I'm very happy to discuss Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad-gita. We managed to discuss 4 of them, so there are actually 7 more. Maybe we can do in a future presentation, let's see. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.